ba, ba. Apparently we're streaming. Every single episode starts with me saying, welcome to the Art of Rock. It's Saturday. It's here. It's now. Everything is joyous. Oh, God, I want to really punch computers. I'd like to acknowledge the Tongva people as being the traditional landowners of Los Angeles, where I am now. Every Saturday, the Art of Rock is here. Boom. Look at that. Bam. It's on Angelspit's Twitch. Also on the Instagram, the YouTube and stuff. This is made possible with Angelspit's Patreon. Hey, if you've got $3 and you want to spend it my way, I'd be really grateful. If you don't have $3 or you don't want to spend any money on me, that's fine. So much of the content there is free because I do really want to keep people going, and people want to keep me going, and we want to keep each other going, and it means a lot. Oh my God, it's getting so close. Holy shit. Wednesday week, that's December 11th. I have my first live gig in 7 years, and I'll tell you, I'm fucking nervous. It's going to be fantastic. Please come. I don't know if I'm going to get to stream it or not, but it probably will be recorded. The Industrial Incisions playlist is a whole bunch of awesome shit that I would love you to listen to because it's fantastic. Go there, listen to it. Many of the bands are here. Reminder those bands, please send me your new music, God damn it. If you're bored on a Wednesday night, Culture Vulture's YouTube does some fantastic synth stuff. Always brilliant. Please go listen, get involved, love it. Really, and we just did a video together, actually. It's really awesome. Non-stop alternative music from MTV TV. These guys rock. Please, if you go there, you're going to find your new band. It should really carry a warning. And if you've got, if you're in a band and you want to get your stuff played, they'll play it for free. You know how hard it is to get played and to get found and all that stuff that we're always going on about? Here is a life hack, MTV TV. Just send it into it and they will play it. They also have a Patreon, and we've got to keep these guys going. It is so important. So throw them some money because they're fucking awesome. And Razi, thank you again and again and again for being a part of this, for helping making this going. You're a fucking rock star.
Hey, thank you for saying so, and it is always a pleasure to be here, and awesome. I'm the beneficiary.
I don't know what that means, but I do know you have a Patreon. It's there. You have a YouTube. It's there. And you've got a Bandcamp. It's there. Fucking awesome. Right, bitches. Fucking, we're going to have a conversation. Is Alex dealing with... Yeah, okay. Alex, cleaning gear. Oh, Razi, firstly, what's your hand up?
You briefly mentioned it in passing, but the Vulture Culture video that you did was a pretty big deal as far as information dump and maybe some other angle on what you're doing that we don't talk about here on this show. Oops. So I just wanted to call attention to it, and if you had a second to jump in before we get started with other stuff, just talk about the process of making that video and a little of what you said in case anybody wants to check it out.
I would love to. I should actually put the link in here because it's very important.
Yeah, man, go.
It was, oh, shit, that reminds me. If you want to come to the gig, Rebel Rouse they've got a giveaway. They're giving away tickets, so please go there. Thank you very much for, look at Karl being so amazing with the coherency of his verbiage. So this is the Culture Vulture video I did. It's there. Go watch it. Alex is great because Alex asks big questions. Something I really need to do more often is like Art of Rock is we're sitting and down talking about stuff and da-da-da-da-da, and it's great. But with this one, it's like, okay, I'm sitting at synthesizers now and we're talking about it. And basically, we had a chat. Alex went back and edited it. And it was really interesting. It was maybe a 2-hour call or something. It got edited down to about an hour. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that, Karl and Alex being funny. But it's really interesting that I came out of it going, you know what, maybe I am dark ambient. And it was interesting. We were talking, we talk a lot about the gear, the way the gear is done, the whole ethos behind it. And the more I go down this path, the more I'm realizing that not many people are doing it like this. In fact, very, very few people are doing it like this. Most people are turning up with a laptop because it's easy. Hey, don't get me wrong. It fits in a Prius or on a bus. It's easy. And they're not turning up with 1, 2, 3, 4 big boxes and a collapsible table so that they can actually play it live. So it's, yeah, we go into how everything is done, from how the MIDI is all stuck together to what the audio is doing, to how the audio is mixed, to the audio software, to the synthesizers being used, to the entire ethos behind playing it, like the whole thing. I would love to be able to somehow do this as Angelspit, but I don't think that could be done. And that's the lovely thing about Ice Planet 9000 is that you can create, you can do this thing where it's like, I'm going to play this song a little slower now, or I'm going to just sit on this drone and I feel like doing this thing now, or this, I don't feel the audience is being engaging with this. I'm going to cut this song a little short. It was a great interview. So it's there. Go watch it. It's good fun. Ask me questions if you choose, if you wish.
If you don't mind my jumping in, one of the things that I appreciated about it was some specifics. You were talking while sitting in front of the thing that you were talking about and making some examples, audio examples that we could actually hear and listen to. And I thought it connected well with some of the more philosophical and artistic and creative stuff about here's how it sounds when I say this word, what I mean is this sound played on this instrument with these controls. And that's super great. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And,
Thank you.
Thanks for doing it.
Is that the sort of thing that we would be more like interested in doing increasingly here? Like actually, because one thing I really loved it is I did finally figure out how to connect a blaster beam to everything. And that sounds like it's an easy thing, but believe me, it is not. It's a total fucking pain in the dick.
I would be down for doing whatever it takes to make that happen. It is extremely complicated and it does require a new level of care right before the show starts every time you hit play to see where there's feedback loops and echoes and distortions and stuff like that. But, this is what we do. This is, this is our place.
What's interesting is that actually to create that video, I recorded everything separately onto a little
double-ended.
A Zoom recorded. So he got it's Zoom and Zoom, the Zoom meeting, while I was recording it onto my little 2-track HN4 or whatever the fuck it's called, Zoomy thing. So the audio was at least slightly better. But yeah, it's I would love to do more things like this because sorry, I'm trying to fucking
do what you're doing.
I'd like to do more. Ask me more questions. I'm following your words now.
If it's something that you're interested in doing, I think it's a special event type of thing until it's old hat. It's the kind of thing where you can spend a month getting your system ready so the latency is low and decide whether you're double ending it so that you have to send recordings and do an edit, or get a good single recording of the entire event like we do here, and all of that takes coordination and effort and stuff. So I mean, the number of us that are actually going through, I don't even know who's connected to what, like if you're even using the same audio interface that takes your DAW's sound and turns it, into from a USB stream into a virtual source for your Zoom is a whole, world of questions since we're doing this on Zoom. But in short, Zoom has affordances to take all this stuff live rather than doing it as a double ender, since that's how we're doing stuff right now with multi-channel interfaces. You can select which channels it's listening to. You can select high quality audio. You can select low latency. It's got some stuff right now that it didn't have a year ago or last time we even broached this topic that could be interesting to explore. Complicated, but super educational in the end. And it's a good skill to have to put your hi-fi tunes so you can just hit play or something on your live stream.
Thank you.
I think that plus the stuff we were talking about. No, I think it was no. Well, it was whenever it might have been last meeting when I had the chickens and whatnot out there, but we were getting into some of the 5.1 stuff, and I know that kind of bookended with that video as well, at least in terms of what you were talking about with the blast beam and whatnot.
Yeah, and it's so strange. The more I venture into this, the more I think I just want to play in people's lounge rooms, because you can set up some extremely cool audio stuff in someone's lounge rooms. Like you can take a bunch of small, those small speakers that are this big that, you can take a bunch of them and you've got this crazy sound system going on. And that's all you need for a small thing. But yeah, I don't know. I'm very open to some things happening here, and I feel people are where I was once quite despairing about where music is headed and where live performance is headed. I'm kind of excited about it, like doing this without the limitation of space or this or that or that. Yes. So Amulet 1829, I wish you could be there in December too. But like I said, I'll try and stream it, but I can't make promises. Razi, what do you think?
Before we move on to some more applied stuff, this is kind of a pet trend for me that I've been trying to do throughout this past year, is like take opportunities to be more in the tech and music and spirit of knowing my own repertoire and stuff. And I think being able to easily connect your production system to a call when you're chatting with friends or on a group chat is right in line with that. So
I agree.
being more of a performing and creative musician, working in the world.
I agree. I think, yeah, you're right. I want to push this a little harder, and like bring more like synthy stuff going on. Something to say, and it slipped my brain, and I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah, another really interesting thing that's happening for me, at least personally, and feel free to everyone jump in on this one, is that the way I'm writing music is changing, and it's going back to the way I used to write music before I had a whole bunch of synthesizers and I was 16 or 14. And that is, you keep playing it, keep playing it, keep playing it until it sounded good, like they did back in the olden days. And you'd write down notes, and I actually have 2 notes here. Oh my God, I turned on the Moog this week. Jesus Christ, that synthesizer. Christ. Oh, wow. Yeah. Diana, it's so fantastic to see you in the chats. And Alistair, as always, Alistair Hyde, thank you for being there. Yeah, I'm really, because we've already got another show lined up for February, and I've got a track that I want to do, and I was thinking that I want to, I've had a really interesting week. I've had a curious week, a bit dark, but it's a curious week that using these gigs as an opportunity to try and flesh out a song, so that when you turn up, you know what you're doing. But what's interesting about the album, the Ice Planet album number 3 that's coming out, is that it was done partly like that. It was a live stream, kick the song around a bit, then record it. But in the process of playing these songs live, I have been kicking them around so much that there's all of these other little bits and pieces that, Rainbow, welcome. There's all these other little bits and pieces that I'm kind of trying to figure out, and that have come together in the song to make the song more good. So I'm trying to get back to that sort of ethos and the joy of creating music, actually creating music, not sitting in front of a computer, but actually creating music. And I don't know, it's just a very positive thing. If anybody wants to jump up, it's much more gooder.
I have a whole other mic stand over here so I can turn away from the computer screen when I'm doing the arrangements and practicing for my live performances. Yeah, it takes you out of a certain headspace, just turning 90 degrees and not looking at what the screen is doing and your level meters, and instead, well, I'm staring at some guitars, but I pretend they're my fans. Maybe they are.
Oh, that's great. Another really fun thing to do is like, I've got a mud map, and the mud maps on your phone or your digital device is print the mud map out. You know what I'm like, a score. Like, what the fuck am I playing now? I don't know, a mud map? What do you call that? I don't know, whatever it is, but I print it out. So there's paper, and there's notes on the paper instead of notes on your phone. Because I had this conversation, was it even on Art of Rock? I don't remember. Where I was asking the question is, when you write shit down on paper, is it better? The process is more fun. Faster isn't better. It's not. It's not as fun. It's not as, like, you don't bury yourself. You don't, like, really get into the fucking process, I find, anyway, when it's fast. Sometimes, sure, you gotta be there fast, but other times.
I think it was when you were talking to Alex. You were talking about making notes on where your instruments are laid out.
Yeah.
By octave, and having cheat sheets ready for the performance. You're talking about having notes for that.
I ended up not. I've got it on the main. I've got one right here. I've got 3 of them. I'm only doing 3 songs, and each song's going for 15 minutes because that's how long the hourglass is, a 15-minute flip. So that's a 45-minute set, and everyone's happy. At the top of it, you can't see that, but trust me, it's there. At the top of it, it tells you where everything is on the keyboard. I actually wrote on the keys. I'm that guy. I wrote just on the first A 0, on the second A 1, so I know what the fuck is going on. Because in the video, as I mentioned, it's so hard to remember what the hell is there. This is really crazy because this is a new thing to remember in my brain when I'm performing, and I love it. It's fascinating. Brett, your hand was up.
Yeah, so my thought kind of changed between then and now, but I guess where I'm at now is I'm curious what you mean by on the computer, and I'll give you kind of an example of how I write songs, and maybe that'll explain it a little bit better. A lot of times, like, I'll use guitar or other, like you with Blaster Beam and things like that, and you have to kind of you have to rehearse what you're doing per track in that regard as you're making the song. So I'm curious what you meant by the difference of being of writing music not on the computer versus the way you're doing that.
Well, I mean, like, hi, meow meow. Oh, I just cat. Having the writing on paper is it's a really curious thing because you can scrap it out and you can rub it out and scribble it out, and it's really Eliza, always good to have you here. It's really it's inside my brain. It's a different way of working. Like, when it's on a computer, it's all there, it's all laid out, it's all very simple. And maybe my thing is I am minimizing the chances of mistakes, fuck-ups, and misunderstandings. And the trick about music is that in mistakes, fuck-ups, and misunderstandings, there are some miracle things waiting to happen. And I think that I need to, and that's why I love, like, samplers. And do your Kurzweils read floppies, by the way, Brett?
I can read all the same files, but they've upgraded to USB.
Okay, cool.
So
Just
I would need to grab my floppy USB drive and convert it.
Okay. Thank you. So what that's the question I guess I've learned is that I just because I may have found some Kurzweil files that I might send your way, floppy. Anyway, that I guess as I go on and as I look, frankly, I get more bored and I get my mind starts going insane because people start telling me what to do and I listen, as you do. Going back to pen and paper, because that's how I started. I started with my Casio CZ3000, an SH101, and a Dr. Rhythm DR220A. And it was the best writing setup I've ever had because it was so simple. And it wasn't the best one because it was the first one. It was like trig out from the drum machine into the SH101 and I hold the note down and I just hit hold or an arpeggiator and I'm working on all this music and stuff. It was so simple because you could come up with ideas and figure them out real quick. You weren't fucking around with all this shit. And also, yeah, I think that's the point that is really important for me to make is that for me, and I have to stress for me, throwing as much spice and chaos into the mix is going to yield a better taste. Razi, what do you think?
I wanted to know what you actually put on this. You're calling it a mud map, as in dirt and water mixed together mud? Or
so you're not familiar with that term?
Not. No, I would have called it a score or a chart or a lyrics sheet or something, but I don't know. I mean, that's just what it says on the software that I loaded. I'm looking at a computer screen. It says.
So I think, right, Rob, mud map.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a cognitive splat on a piece of paper that you just put all your ideas down, and there's no structure. You're just dumping it all on there like you're drawing pictures in the mud.
Oh, that's the mud part. Got it.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I mean, like a mind map, except without the mind.
Forever, like, it's a mud map.
Yeah.
It's not a score. It's a mud map.
That's something entirely
I'm not
different.
laughing
Yeah.
at you.
I get
I'm
it.
laughing at your nation. Like it's a mud map. You look at this and you go, that looks like mud. And it's also like, so a mud map was traditionally how to get to someone's house. And you draw it with a stick on the ground. Oh, this is Baker Street. Then you go down that way. I don't know why I did Baker Street, but I did.
Cool.
And then you go, so hence mud map. And when I moved to Lismore, that actually became a real thing. And there's also the finger on the back of a dirty windscreen map. And that's handy because if you get lost, you just get out of your car and you look at the windscreen again. Oh, that's what they meant. And hope it doesn't rain. So the mud map, it's got the BPM at the top. Then it's got a layout of what is going where, as far as what's where on, like, for example, A0 and B0 are the low thumps that come out the sub output. C1 to C5 is a whole bunch of samples. Stick 3 Y-axis is the sustain for that. B3 to E5 is the big fat Moog bass. It's actually a Fairlight bass. And it's sensitive to controller 19. So controller 19 is opening the filter. Controller 19 is also assigned to the pedal. God damn it, I love that Studio Logic SL88 keyboard. It is so fucking good. The F, don't look at it on Reverb, Ivan, I swear to God.
I already have one.
Jeez, you have an 88?
Oh no, I got the ones, the next size down.
Oh, the 76.
Yeah.
And does it have the 3 joysticks?
No, it doesn't have the 3 joysticks.
Oh, now you're gonna look for it. Look, those things. And can you?
I don't have room for an 88 right now.
That's right, you don't. Can you? Is there 4 different assignable MIDI thingies on that you can assign on the screen?
Yes.
Yes. Fucking hell! It's such a good piece of device. It is such a good piece. Like SL, the Studio Logic SL88. Full weighted, because the 88 and one of the 76 versions has also got the 3 joysticks. Fuck, it's good. It's such a good thing. Anyway, and because on each of those MIDI layers, they can all be going to the same MIDI channel or different MIDI channels or different MIDI outputs, or one goes to USB, one goes to MIDI, whatever. And you can say, well, this stick here is going to be controlling sustain. This one here will be controller 14. This one here will be good old-fashioned modulation, and this way that it's sprung, because one joystick is sprung up, down, and left, right. full spring. Other one is just sprung up and down, but not left and right. And the other one doesn't have any springs in it at all. And then you can say, well, it's got 2 controller pedals, and the pedal can be on each of the MIDI zones. It can be a different thing. So it can be on zone 1, it can be controller 19 on, which is my filter. On number 2, it can be the wet dry mix, whatever you want. It's fucking great. F5 to C8 is a very big, beautiful pad sound that's going through the Dope for phaser, great phaser, and then into the fucking bat noise engineering mega fucking reverb, and then C6 to C8 is this bowl sample. And then there's an ARP, and these are the notes you play on the ARP, so you actually have to write them in. Then it will start at 00, spacey stuff. We're going to start with spacey stuff. Then at 30 seconds, bring in the bass, and these are the notes that the bass is playing. And I told you up here where the Moog bass is, so you won't lose your place. At around about 1 minute 20, and this is just fucking arbitrary. Like once you've done that twice or 3 times or something, start playing the chromatic melody with the bass. And around about 3 minutes, start creating, instead of it just being a melody, start pulling in notes so it becomes chords, and start bringing in the intensity of the foot pedal, which is going to the filter of the bass, and also it is affecting the pad a little tiny bit. And then around about 5 minutes, just drone on E, and fuck on the blaster beam. Then go back to the main theme, which is actually a melodic theme. Then go back to the chromatic melody with spacey stuff. Then playing chords and intensifying. And something I love doing is, you know how the bass goes bum, 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 bum. Well, because it's playing these chords, what I'm going to, and they're the root notes of the chords, I'm going to start moving the bass up. So it might start playing different notes within the chords so that you are moving in an ascending motion. I need to translate that. Then do more shit, and then come out on E and just wank. I actually have wank written here. Wank. Because it's ambient music. Fuck you! I think ambient music is lacking humor. By the way, ambient music's all about healing. No one's funny. No one's like, you're not rubbing a bowl and you go, and you go, oh, fuck, gag. No, don't do that. Like, what better way to heal yourself than have a laugh? And you can make so many. I'm there with a sample. I can make all the fart and burp jokes in the world, and it's an emulator, and I should just get the Ferris Bueller thing. Flatulence in space. Yeah. I mean, there's a thing. Razzie, what? I see your hand.
I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to let you know. I was gonna, if you're going on with the farts and somehow that ends up throwing to me. There's some kind of line between being able to practice with these notes so that when you're playing live, you know that these are the points that you need to look at them.
Yeah.
Because I have found over the decades that the same thing that makes me forget verse 3 of this song every time in rehearsal and live is the same thing that makes me forget to look at the notes that I've written really large and on the floor and in the dark with the flashing lights.
You know what? Go on. Sorry.
No, that's pretty much it. Like the line between I rehearsed with these notes and I've also distilled them to something that I can trust, that I know when to look at. Like the beginning of the song, the thing that happens at 15 minutes doesn't help you to read that necessarily at the beginning of the song, or maybe it does.
Yeah. Something I forget to do is I always call up the correct sound on the controller keyboard, which sends the information to the everything. What I don't do is change the fucking preset in bloody in the goddamn it's coming mixer. And I know I can control that via MIDI. I just haven't yet. But I need to do that. But I haven't yet. Maybe I should do that now. Yeah, and the other trick is going from one to the other. So you're actually rehearsing the set and actually having a big conversation about not rehearsing mistakes is such a big thing. Like, that's why I think it's really important that when I'm doing this, that I'm learning, that I'm actually relearning from 3 million years ago when I used to do music, like actually play it and perform it, is you've got to be able to play it. Step one, play it. Follow the fucking notes and play it, know what's going on. Step two, fuck the notes and off you go, I think. And if something goes wrong and you crash and burn, you've got the notes. And plus, like I said, the notes are a mud map. So like that's the equivalent to ish, like 8-ish. It's a mud map. Yeah, but I'm totally with you. The whole thing about how do you highlight something enough so that at the 15-minute mark, you know, oh, I have to do that thing now. Yep. Don't know.
I mean, obviously the solution is there are more prompters on stage than there are floor wedges nowadays. Like that's everybody's solution, is just have somebody operating a timed prompter that works with you, even if you're improvising, you know, and you can skip sections. The real trick though is, especially with 15-minute ambient pieces, like going from top to bottom on one of those is a commitment. And, you know, it's like a whole journey through the whole thing every time you want to go top to bottom, and starting from the middle section and just rehearsing, you know, the parts from 7 minutes through the rest is still twice as long as most songs, you know, that you'd be doing in a rock and pop band. So it's an interesting puzzle. Are you finding yourself going through top to bottom, stopping and knowing how to recover your cues and stuff, or is it on rails?
Well, it's increasingly I'm not stopping because it's ambient music and I've figured out how to do it. A great experience I've had in my life is working with dancers, like ballet dancers and stuff, or modern dancers. And when they do a fast run through rehearsal, instead of doing the movements, they just do this. Just to remind them of what's going on. That literally, that's what they do with their hands. And you see like these 4 ballerinas in a line, boom, 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 doing this. And that's how they do it. And it's the same thing with this stuff. It's like bam, 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 run through the chords, dun, 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 bomb. So a 15-minute thing you can play in 1 minute, because you're just going jigga, 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 jigga. And that's, I think that's also, I think that's also a really important thing to be able to do. I didn't answer your question again.
No, it's actually, I mean, it does. It's a different way of thinking than, here's a phrase from bar 90 that I get wrong every time. I'm just going to practice that lick or that run or that change from difficult chord voicing to other difficult chord voicing, or one that involves needing to switch controllers in 3 places. Like those are things you can isolate and practice and get muscle memory for. And you know that event is coming up at some time in the timeline, and it might be a long time from now, but somehow having the idea of what to include on your mud map or score or note sheet that's going to remind you that that's the thing you forget, without having all the details there, because then you don't have time to read it. You know, you're in the flow of playing the thing. How much time can you dedicate to a page of scrawled stuff?
Yeah.
So imagine as the timer is running out, you can then look at the mud map and fade out some of the melodies, and then keep sustaining the blaster beam whilst you punch in the next presets, and then slowly slide them back in on the mixer, and then go silly again. Turn the hamster upside down, and away you go again.
You've got one. Look at you.
Yeah.
It really, something that pisses me off about the SL88 is, and maybe this is something I have to figure out, or there's a firmware update. Gee, I don't know. Is that if you're playing, it's got a really good MIDI merge in it. So I'm coming out of the little Arturia 30 key step 37, and it's playing my little bit of ARPy lines. That's going into the into the controller keyboard, and then it's getting merged and going on to the emulator 4. If I change the preset on the master keyboard while information is coming into it, even if I'm holding notes down, even if I'm moving the controller paddle, it crashes.
That's why you need to have a foot pedal, looper, foot pedal.
Yeah, well, lucky I've got the blaster beam, so I can be doing, you know, stuff on the blaster beam.
You get an analog sustain that'll carry you through to the next setup.
Yeah, well, all the the analog, it's just there, but the sustain pedal and everything else is going through the SL88. And what I was going to do is actually just get a MIDI merge, like a separate little MIDI merge. I've got one back there, and I was just going to put that in there so I can have stuff still going to the emulator 4 while this thing's clocking over, like a little arpeggiator line or shit like that.
As long as it's fun. Because
Yeah.
in the end, like, that's what's got to read, because nobody can tell what's going on. Nobody knows what's merged. I mean, if you make a broad gesture to one of your joysticks, maybe somebody's going to pick up on it and get it. But so much of what's going on has got to be playing on your experience as you reflect and project.
Yeah, and it's really interesting how, you know, you write a song, you produce it up, butter, all that shit in your door, and that's that part of the song. Like it's character, it's face. You have learned from the recording process, but then you play it live, and you introduced another character of the song, like completely different side of it's the same song, but it's like all of this stuff. You know, and I'm not just talking about the choices you make live playing where your fingers go. I'm talking about, like, you know, what you were talking about, the actual how to do this. How do I pull this off? Fascinating. Yes. We can keep going here. Do we want to keep going here, or do we want to fang on over to a very interesting question that Alex had? About cleaning gear.
It's not really about cleaning. I think it's more about repairing. I have got this drum machine / sequencer, and my problem is that those buttons don't work anymore. I thought it was like the plastic cap, but I remembered it wrong. And it's actually the little micro button underneath. I tried out while it's on to just bridge the connections, and I think it's just the button that doesn't work half of the time, so it's not the traces on the PCB. I wonder if you have any tips on maybe how to resolder or maybe clean them. I've seen people use contact spray, but I think you can only use certain kinds, because if you use the wrong one, it will eat through the contact. So if you have any tips, because it's quite infuriating.
Razi, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, keep it simple. Contact cleaner is contact cleaner, and lubricants are lubricants, and they're not the same stuff. Sometimes they are the same stuff, but if you get like Keg, Pro Gold, or Tweak, or Deoxid, or any of the major normal brands, a little bit of it, but anything that, if I take it back a few steps, and if you could just let me know, are we talking plastic actuators where your hand goes, and then there's a surface mount tactile switch with a little bit of, supposed to have a click to it, that's on the PCB? Surface mount?
Yes, it's like those ones on the pocket operators, those small little.
Oh yeah.
Which
So
are
I used
these ones, which are like plastic caps, which push them down. Yeah,
but they're micro switches, and this is the second time I get to whip out the EBO that I added tactile switches to. So these are flat surface mount switches in the same way, and they have openings to flood them, to clean them out.
no,
Probably not. Oh, they're sealed.
yeah, that's the problem.
Then I wouldn't hesitate to get a desoldering tool, low wattage soldering iron, look at where the traces are. And if you're saying when you short it's a 2 contact, like just a normally open.
It's 4.
And did you figure out which two are going in pairs, and did you have to short all?
It's crossover.
And you successfully ascertained that it does perform the action that you're trying to perform when you short 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, I had the machine running, but without a faceplate, and I just used a paperclip to bridge the contacts, and it did the thing.
Gently desoldering. I mean, you can ruin the solder pads on the PCB, but if it's broken already, these are risks I like taking. There are pump electrical desoldering tools. There's also just regular copper desoldering braid, which works pretty well. And if it's a delicate PCB, you might want to just use your low wattage or temperature controlled soldering iron, then get the soldering wick on there to clean it up. And then the switch is going to fall out easily. Mauser and, everybody, wherever, you can find replacement 1-to-1 switches, drop them in. Probably you're going to be okay if you know how to solder well enough, not burning any traces. But obviously this is where you want to be careful when you're doing the solder. Make sure it flows beautifully and use your best practices, and you don't heat up the board around it. But it's pretty doable. Like half a centimeter sized switches, or are they this full centimeter sized?
Yeah, I think just the smaller ones, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's touchy, but that's why I have glasses. I think doing one, obviously first and just seeing how it goes, makes sense. I've done a few of them. Mostly what I've done is just big hack jobs on larger components that aren't surface mount. But the only thing that you do, aside from the skills involved in keeping it clean and not burning solder traces and knocking off the pads, is making sure the dimensions of the replacement part are pretty close to identical, so that all the plastic parts line up, and you're still clicking the thing that you meant to be clicking and not missing it entirely when you push on the actuators and stuff. Does that line up with what you were looking at? It probably sounds like.
Yeah, probably.
For starters, you can just get, the desoldering braid costs you nothing for an investment, and a reasonably 10 watt or 15 watt small soldering pencil is probably, maybe you already have
I have a soldering iron. I just need to maybe find the right kind of micro button.
Yeah, cool. Let us know how it goes. I think doing that first one will be the telltale, yes, achieved, and then it'll just get better from there.
Fantastic, thank you. Brett, what do you think?
And this may have already been mentioned while I was in the bathroom there, but there's also a product out there called Deoxit. You might want to give that a go. If it's not too far gone, that may help you for a while. Eventually, though, you're going to run into those little buttons just wear out.
Any component that has an opening on it, totally Deoxit or Pro Gold or Tweak, Kremlin. Those are the stuff that you want to flood it with for sure. Unfortunately, these particular ones, Brett, are sealed.
Awesome. Yeah. I can't really help much, but this is great advice. Replace them fuckers.
Yeah, it's more encouragement even than advice, because Alex knows what he's doing already. For
Get him, Alex.
Maybe there's one trick, I tried pressing them thousands of times, but it only made things worse. So maybe that was not the way to go. And I don't know if there's something broken or there's just junk in between the contacts. I don't know.
Fantastic. Well, there's a whole site dedicated to MPC stuff called mpcstuff.com. That's fantastic. Is there an Emacs site like this? Someone find it now. Go. Did we want to continue on this, or do we want to talk about something else Alex brought up the other week, which was album coherence, which I really liked? Putting Alex on the spot. How's the pizza?
It was great. I think I should have put it a bit more in the oven, but I lost the paper with the manual, so I had to just do it by rule of thumb. Yeah, my question.
Whoa! We're talking about pizza.
Okay.
You lost the manual to the pizza? Really?
Yeah.
Quick start guide or the technical spec.
You drew a mud map on it, didn't you, Alex?
So somewhere in my apartment is just the pizza box, and I must have put it into while like being me and ADHD brained.
my
So maybe if I go to sleep in my bed, there will be a pizza carton or something.
right. Or if it was here,
Or
Frank would be
I don't
putting
know.
it. It's okay, Alex. Don't worry. Don't you listen to that mean Australian?
Why
So
does my MPC sound like a pizza carton?
because it's stuffed. I just made a good joke. It was a good joke. Okay. What was it? My oven got fixed this week. I'm very, very happy. My oven got and it's working better, and I'm doing my roasts and like a bitch because Frank demands a roast, and if no roast, then Frank gets angry. I was talking to my neighbor this morning. Oh, we're just having a chat because two doors down, in the apartment, and Frank starts yelling at me, like I could hear him, like, and he goes, "Is that my cat?" And I went, "No, that's Frank. As the sun was coming up, and Frank needs to play." Okay, I'm sorry, this is just too much information. Right, Alex, back to you on album Coherency.
Yes, I was listening to the White Album by the Beatles, and I was wondering because if you listen to it, there are like more serious songs and more fun songs like Bungalow Bill on the same album, and it's it's kind of funny. I think the Beatles are renowned as like one of the greatest bands, but this album is kind of if you're being mean, it's kind of a mess because thematically you're all over the place. And my question is, how much lack of coherence are you willing to tolerate on the albums you listen to and the ones you want to put out?
Okay, this is good. Brad, I'd love to know your thoughts on this.
I probably tolerate a good bit. I mean, every artist is obviously going to have their, sound of sorts just because you're that creative entity that makes that thing. But, I mean, if you look at bands like Velvet Acid Price, for example, every single album they do is a different concept. Now, if you blended up those all into one album, which is the same sort of thing as shuffling an artist, you essentially have the same sort of thing. I think you could get away with quite a bit. There's other thematic things you could do to tie it together if you wanted. If they're all songs about a certain thing, but kind of run the spectrum between like genre. I don't see any problem with that.
This is interesting. Excuse me. This is really interesting. Like, how do you do it? I don't know how you do it. For me, I need to. I've mentioned this before that John Fox's album, A Man, a Woman, a City, is inspiring because it's so beautifully themed. And then you listen to Gabriel's stuff and it's so beautifully themed. And as far as music I listen to, I don't really care because it all sounds, my brain chooses to make it the same. As far as the music I make, and my advice to anyone else is just go with it, because you're going to have songs. The thing that I think you need to be concerned about are songs that are too, oh wow, these songs sound like they're twins. You want to avoid that. And I have a problem with that because that is a problem that I constantly run into because of the way I write, which is I juggle several songs at the same time. So they're going to be bleeding into each other. To combat these things, almost every sound on every song is a different sound, is specifically every sample. Even if it's coming off the modular, if it's the fucking Mutant 909 clap. It's going to be ever so slightly tweaked. So they're all different. But yeah, that's why I love the whole idea of having an ethos, of having a theme, having a thing going into the whole thing, is that I want it to sound like the interior of the Nostromo from Alien, or I want it to sound like the engine room from the Nostromo from Alien. It's all about the Nostromo from Alien, man, I'm telling you. Yeah, ask me more questions, Alex, go.
Well, I just wanted to answer my own question because for some reason, sometimes I don't mind and sometimes I do, and I don't have a clear-cut rule where when it's the one case and when the other. Maybe it doesn't have to be consistent tone, but somehow flow into another or like complement each other. And sometimes it feels like just the one track was just abandoned and left there, like abducted by aliens and just dumped in the album. So yeah, yeah.
I feel your pain. Rezi, go.
This is so hard to articulate. Like I can't get my head around all the things that I'm thinking with this prompt. And one thing that comes to mind is there are albums that argue for all positions on this successfully in my faves catalog, things that I return to for sure. There are as many records, you know, an LP of, let's say, 40 minutes and 5-10 songs that have one hit that was obviously produced by the other guy they hired and paid a lot more for than the rest of the thing. Maybe he did some arranging and fixed some problems. And it's awesome, but the rest of the album's great too. Like I really dig the not produced hits, the ones that are more raw and sound like the band just brought them in and the demos made it on the album. You know, in some ways the difference between Don't You Want Me and the rest of the album is like that. But then there's of course like entire, and also Peter Gabriel to some extent in a very different way when we're talking about, Karl mentioned him. So has a couple of things that sound a lot more like they're pandering, which honestly, you know, I just kind of skip Big Time and Sledgehammer. I don't need to listen to them. They were on the radio. We took care of that. And then there's records that are just a flow, a vibe that sound like the band, and they're pretty monolithic the whole way through. And some noise artists and stuff that they are functionally indistinguishable from each other, and you could needle drop anywhere on the side and not know exactly which track you're in. And all of these are valid and enjoyable and successful approaches. And man, it's like, how do you even talk about that? I guess you just talk a lot to talk about it. Alex, did you want to jump back in?
Yeah, maybe one rule that just came into my head is that if the album is very heterogeneous and mixed up, like a fruit salad, then it doesn't matter if one song is a bit is off. But if it's like all the same, and then suddenly you have one song that peaks out, it sort of rubs you the wrong way. Unless it's the really end and somehow like a lift off, or maybe at the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different levels to the arc within the verse, within the song, within the side, within the album. Absolutely. Rob, you've got your hand up. I want to hear.
Yeah, it's having a you can retain some consistency on an album by having the same sound or the same theme. You don't have to be both, right? So the sound might change in terms of rhythm and beats per minute, but the story is still the same story, and that takes you on a journey.
Yeah.
Or it's a complete mashup of topics, but you still feel the same. And you know, there's one album which did rub me a little bit the right way and the wrong way in my youth, and that was Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare. It had really good horror themed tracks in there, and it was broken up by some top 40 chart songs like
Yeah, the Desmond Childs
Youth
written
and Only
tracks.
Women Bleed, and it's like I get those songs, I feel those songs, but the rest of the album stands by itself. It's got a feeling, a morbid, eerie feeling to it that I really dig, and kind of like Sledgehammer and Big Time. You kind of want to skip over those ones because those top 40 ones, they kind of grind you the other direction. It's a different mood. And if you've got consistent sound and everything's unrelated, and I'll throw in another example, like Art of Noise, every single track is completely independent and unrelated to each other. Some of them are even remixes, but you have that kookiness about them where there is continuity in the unexpected. You know, we're going to go on another Fairlight excursion now, guys. We're not really sure what to expect. There's no real set verses or, you know, but they can all be different and you're still experiencing the same kind of flavor and journey of the Art of Noise. So, you know, as long as you've got some consistency, it doesn't have to be the sound. It might be the story. And then there are those artists which you completely mix it up. Like this will be a bit of a obscure reference, but there was an Australian band called Regurgitator, and their songs would all be completely different style, different sound. The only thing that you could tell was the same was really the vocalist. And then you still knew that you were still listening to the same album. But and that's okay, because it was also, again, it was the unexpectedness of it that made it fun from track to track. It didn't have to be a story. It just had to be a modge podge of crazy fun, you know.
Can I jump in there? And just back you up on the Gurge or Regurgitator. So it's a band you need to know about, Regurgitator. So Regurgitator actually came out of these, I'm hijacking this. They were an amalgamation of these two amazing bands. One was called Pangaea and the other one was called, I don't remember. And they were from Brisbane. And fuck, they were good. Like, they were the best fucking players and the nicest, funniest, wackiest guys. And yeah, as Rob said, you know, they did this album called Art. And in Art, every song sounds like it should be on a different album. It sounds like a best of. Because yeah, and it's funny how in sometimes the singer is singing and other times he's rapping, sometimes he's mumbling. And it's really good. Holy shit, Regurgitator are good. And this is the fascinating thing about it, is that, you know, when you listen to Dark Side of the Moon, it's like Dark Side of the Moon. And you listen to Violator, because of the sounds and the feelings of the sounds and the way that they're produced in the warm womb that they sonically inhabit. But then you listen to something else, like, for example, Art of Noise, and the thing it has in or Regurgitator is the songs all have this thing in common where they might be crunchy, dirty, Fairlight samples that are not giving a fuck. And, you know, it's funny, I was listening to Adam and Ant's, I think it's the Ant Music album, just the other day, thinking how, man, some of these songs just shouldn't be here. Because it was like, well, that one was obviously produced with a lot of money because it's the single, and then that one was too. But then there's this other shit. Same with Aha. Like, so if I was to answer this question as in a bad way as I possibly could, I'd say don't give a fuck. And make sure that the question, like, I understand it's an important question. I understand it's important to you. But make sure that this thing doesn't become a hurdle that you put in front of yourself that is stopping you from creating and releasing your music. Oh, I don't want to do this because I've done several albums where I will put a song on there that probably shouldn't be on this album, but I do because I don't give a fuck. And it adds this really bizarre angle to the entire album. Like, it's just this weird, like My Little Blade. The fuck is that song all about? It's actually very fucked up, but Yeah, so I think if you are using the same gear, if it's coming from the same studio, if it's coming from you in a similar time of your life, there is going to be a coherency. Don't worry about it. That's what I think. Rezi, what do you think?
See, I think that can be taken too far also. In the example that keeps coming to mind as everybody's touching on, Art of Noise, which leads to Trevor Horn, which leads to the Grace Jones album Slave to the Rhythm, which is essentially Fairlight samples from all the same 3-minute piece scrambled up and pitched up and down with the latest effects of the time. And maybe I'm giving it short shrift to characterize it that way, but it sounds like that to me, and it might factually be that. But it's pretty thin to fill a whole album with that, and I don't love it. I return to it as a, technological touchstone in inventing the 80s, but it's really kind of, there's not quite enough there to turn it into a whole, album's worth of material in that way, even though it is Fairlight, crunchy 80s, Trevor Horn, Art of Noise experiment, there's a way to fail at that too. Maybe not.
Yeah, totally. And an album that overwhelmingly succeeds, I think, is Seven and the Ragged Tiger by Duran Duran, where I just don't know why. I don't know why that fucking album is incredible. And I keep going back to it. The same with Violator. Same with, Songs of Faith and Devotion. Oh, we're going to mix synth pop with blues, gospel-y blues. But oh my God. Maybe it's the whole ethos behind how we are creating this. Yeah, I don't know. But my problem is the other way, because I have such a distinctive skank. What's the word that means a stench? Stench that you spray on the inside of your pants.
That would be stench.
Yeah, stench. But there's a better word.
Stank.
Stank?
Yeah.
Skank.
Skanky, stank.
Yeah, skanky. I have such a skank to my sound that I work really hard to, look at everyone's
No.
shaking their head.
That's not what you have.
I have to work really hard to make everything sound different. And I always have to go, hold on, have I done this riff before? Have I done something similar to this? Have I used this bass line before? And blah, 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 blah. And whatever, which is getting into something that I wanted to talk about later.
But how many songs on Love by The Cult are the same 3 chords? I think there's 4 hits that they got out of that chord progression.
Yeah, and
sometimes you just do that.
Every single thing they do. But it's not just the chords. It's also and the thing about industrial and electronic music is it's one chord. Thank you, Amulet, for saying Ice Planet 9000 is entirely different terrain. I really appreciate that. Gone. Thought gone. I don't know. Sorry.
Industrial music is one chord.
Yeah. And it's one beat, and it's a bass line that usually goes dung 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 dung. And somebody going blah 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 blah. Ashes fall from the sky. Something about swords. Fucking virus bullshit. Yeah, sorry, I got dark there, but you're all laughing. So yeah, I say don't give a shit. Don't give a shit. Anybody else want to jump in and swear? It's very therapeutic.
Yeah, don't give a shit. I'm with you.
Yeah, don't give a shit. Thank you. Yeah, Brett, do you want to talk about that or anything, or do you want to throw in your?
I already don't give a shit. So. No, when it comes to that's not true. I care about the art, but I don't necessarily care whether or not the listener views it, whether the listener has the same concept of the body of work as I do. that's not for me to figure out. Most of the times, it's not like the argument I put is like, okay, what does the song mean when you take away the lyrics? Then you hand that same piece to 5 different people, and you'll get 5 different responses. So go with the thing that makes you happy. You're the one. You're the storyteller. The thing that I was thinking about earlier is, I've even used, songs that don't necessarily fit the character of the body of work, just to break up the intensity. And that's because you can only carry somebody for so long in that place, and then you gotta hand them something to look forward to, so that you can drag them right back down again. That's
Yes.
kind of sense.
Thank you. Rob, what are your thoughts on this?
This is pretty vanilla advice, but I know lots of albums where I liked all the songs on the album. I can't really remember the albums that only had 1 or 2 good songs on them and all the rest was shit. So it doesn't really matter if there's continuity on the album or not, or cohesion. If you put shit songs in your album, then some people will stop listening and they probably won't go back to it. So do your best to put good stuff on and get it peer reviewed before you release it, so you know that it's a solid album. That's all.
And that's really good advice. Thank you. This kind of legways into the concept of making music when you have no confidence. This is where I am right now. In that I keep a track of my moods and everything when I'm writing an album, because for future albums I'll look back at it and going, okay, is this horrifying mindset I'm in right now? Is this normal? Usually it is, because you go to dark places. But it's interesting that through it all, you know what? I don't know. I was going to say I'm in a different place now, but I don't know if that's the fact, because the exhaustion of the album is setting in. Right about now, exhaustion starts happening, and you lose the ability to make decisions. You lose the ability to hear, is the snare too loud? Is the hatch too loud? Does the bass line work? But a lot of the compositional decisions should have happened a while ago, and they did. So that's, I guess, my question right now is, how do you make music when you have no confidence? Alex, go.
Well, absolutely no confidence is for me a better case than just having a little bit of confidence, but feeling like, because then I feel like I should be doing better, but I'm not. But if I'm feeling like, oh, I'm not good at music anyway, I've fallen off, whatever, then the expectations are gone, and I can just do things and appreciate if they sound good, but I don't really care if they sound bad. I just delete the project, or maybe switch off the machine without saving, and it's gone. And that's somehow freeing. But my problem is usually if I have a little bit of confidence and I feel like I'm botching it, like it's going downhill from here. Yeah, that's just my personal experience.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Brett, what are your thoughts?
So for me, writing music when I don't have any confidence is often kind of a time to do new music. Because if they don't take off immediately, then I've really not wasted anything. I've just had a pretty good band practice session and probably did something therapeutic for myself. And the expectation is lower, and then it makes it oftentimes that's also the kind of thing that starts driving the creative spark a little bit, and then I'll probably segue into other stuff that I'm more interested in accomplishing, but or it'll snowball, I should say, into other things I'm more interested in. But I go into it with the concept of okay, let's do something fun, and I've already got a naming scheme, where it's literally X _ 000 and the next number. So it's already named. I don't worry about that. Now all it's time to do is see whether or not this is going to be something that I work on down the road.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rob.
So confidence is kind of relative. It doesn't necessarily mean that you know what you're doing or you don't know what you're doing. It doesn't mean that you know how to play an instrument or you don't know how to play an instrument. If you think about it in terms of pressure or not being pressured, that's the difference. Don't pressure yourself into thinking that you have to make something good today. Don't pressure yourself into how come I haven't made the best hit in my life kind of deal. Think about intention, being intentional. Think about inspiration, what inspires you. Think about challenging yourself. So do what works best for you, record it, sing the tune or melody into a microphone and record it so you've got a copy of it to refer to it later. You can sequence the shit out of that. You can strum a guitar, do what works for you, but make sure you enjoy it. Enjoy the process and be challenged a little bit to try some new things. You know, it's the art of fuckery as well, right? So don't let things pressure you into thinking that you're not capable of doing stuff, because that's going to erode your confidence. What will improve your confidence is to ignore that completely. Be inspired, record your ideas down, muck around, work with what you know well. You know, it could be just a drum kit, it could be a saucepan and a spoon, whatever works for you. Just stick with that, and then later you can challenge yourself and kind of evolve it a little bit, or ask someone to help out. You know, I need a little guitar riff for this piece. Can you send me like 3 or 4 ideas if you got time? You know, that's helpful, because it's not a confidence issue then. It's just, you know, how do I feel at the moment? Am I in a good enough mood to go create something? Am I inspired? Can I work on a piece that's been sitting on the shelf? The confidence is more of a fear factor, and you want to avoid the fear factor. And another way to ignore the confidence issue is get angry. Take those emotions and energy and mood and channel that into what you're good at. That will blow the confidence issue out of the room.
Thank you. That's some fine advice there. I really appreciate it. Fear factor. Dude, I want to talk about that in a bit. Razi, your brain, go.
Beautifully said, Rob. I was searching for things to say after you echoed everything I wanted to say. I think you're spot on with the alternate way around it kind of angle. And the only thing I could possibly add is that curiosity can really fuel things in lieu of other motivations, where you want to figure out how that happened. You want to figure out how to create a passage that evokes a certain thing that you thought of. You want to imitate something you heard that you think is great, and you just spend that time figuring something out. And it's a solid achievement that you can chalk up after you've done it.
Brilliant. Thank you. Curiosity and fear factor. There you go. That's really important. I have a question, and that is, can you tell, when you listen to a track, can you tell if it was inspired? And when I say inspired, I mean inspired. Can you tell? Everyone.
Sometimes. But you're guessing.
Can you tell the difference between a happy accident and inspiration? Is there more meaning behind the inspiration than the happy accident?
Well, although, no, I'm actually talking about from the perspective of the listener. I mean, can you even tell when you're listening to music that it was a happy accident? Oh, that was a happy accident. I mean, besides Nirvana, I tried hard to have it, where he fucks up the first take of the guitar and then he comes in and he's angry as shit. Besides stuff like that, I'm talking about Depeche Mode or something where they're not bashing the guitars out with Dave Grohl? Can you tell, Alex?
I think I didn't used to, but sometimes I do because there are some sorts of sounds that are usually only done by accident or just by messing around, and not things that humans came up with logically. But yeah, it's something that I acquired but just by being in front of synthesizers for several hours.
Interesting, Rob.
It's a very metaphysical question, Karl.
Because it's going somewhere, but keep going.
You can start from the opposite end of the spectrum and say, how do you identify a song that hasn't been inspired? So think about a remake. Is a remake inspired? I think it is, isn't it? It's inspired by the original, but you're interpreting it yourself. But is it inspired? Well, it's not unique. You're copying somebody. So maybe there is no inspiration there. Somebody else had the inspiration and you're borrowing it. Different ways to look at this. And I think it's a tough question, Karl, because if you can't tell the difference between a happy accident and an inspired theme, but they still sound good, do you care?
Well, yeah, okay, this is good. And what obviously where I'm going back to as far as this go is inspiration is really important, and I'm all about it, and it's great. And happy accidents are fantastic, and trying to set up a creative process in which you are open to create happy accidents. I have way more happy accidents inspire me. Because where I'm going with this is people want to feel inspired. They want to hear that music, and they want to hear the top part of their head being lifted up, and the rays of Nikola Tesla, Carl Sagan, and God, whatever that is, shine into their brain and enlighten them. That's what they want. And sometimes there are songs that do that. In Your Room by Depeche Mode, Tormentor by Skinny Puppy. There's quite a few songs. There's a lot of songs that fucking do that for me. But my question is, can you inspire someone? I mean, I know the answer is yes. Can you inspire someone by not being inspired? Brett, your hand's up. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So to comment on the last part of that question, yes, I think you can inspire someone without yourself being inspired. And I think part of that though is really kind of defined by your perspective of the question. So like if you are just trying to be a formulaic musician, you know, maybe you work for Muzak or something like that, and your job is to, you know, copy as closely as possible without infringing on copyright or something like that, then maybe for you know, I will give you a Closer by Nails. When it hit Muzak, that rendition for me was like, holy crap, am I really actually hearing, you know, Trent's voice as a saxophone? That's both ironic and you know, so did I do anything with it? No, but it definitely created a place in my brain. It's lived there for 20 years now. The other thing, though, that I'm trying to say is, you know, I mean, so much of what we do kind of relies on happy accident. You know, you often polish those happy accidents into that mind-blowing thing, but that again is a matter of perspective. You know, are you looking at the first hour on a song, or are you looking at that 50-hour mark? You know, and then from the listener's experience, you know, it's kind of the same thing. You know, is this the first time they've heard it? If so, then you're most likely to have that spark, that thing that drives the nail right into the forehead. And then, you know, there's that aspect of, you know, once they've listened to it 200 times, now they have a sense of ownership of it.
Okay, this is interesting. Thank you, Brett. Rob, fill my mind.
Does inspiration need to be original? And if you're feeding off other people's lack of inspiration, have you cracked the code? Can you get inspiration from total silence? Or what about inspiration from the mundane, like a loud engine running, like a train passing? I think the originality piece is really interesting because you only get excited by a new idea if it is a new idea that you know of and that you own it. That's motivating. But is it as exciting if somebody has already done it? Think about Green Jello, the punk rock band that covered nursery rhymes. Little pig, let me in, down, down, down. That's a cool idea. Is anyone else going to copy them? Or is that originality gone now? It's fleeting. Is it better to think about something else? And maybe inspiration comes in the nothingness. It comes from the void. That's the perfect place to listen. Whereas if you listen to everyone else's inspired ideas, maybe that's depressing for you because I wish I thought of that.
Okay, this is good. Thank you. Razi, shoot.
I'm going kind of nuts trying to make the distinction between being inspired by something, which is to say I heard something and it gave me motivation. So inspiration and motivation as separate concepts are so tough to tease out in this exact discussion. But we are talking about two separate things here, which might be important to make that distinction. Like, yeah, inspiration doesn't exist without a motivator and a motivated. I mean, that's, I think the definition of the word is we're being motivated to do something by something we heard is an example of inspired into motivation and into action. And it's an interesting like puzzle. And I don't know if the semantics are all that important, but it's where I'm getting hung up and trying to think about examples in my own experience. And it's like, kind of, yeah, collapsing into self-reflection.
No, that's good. Well, see, the reason I ask this is because you want to create something that is, what the hell is this? I've never heard this before. And the fucker about that is you can only hear it once, or it can only be on the one album. And then I don't really know how a band can create something like that while staying true to its sound. To a degree, I stress to a degree. Yeah, that sounds like Skinny Puppy now. You know what I mean? Because the other side of it is, can you hack inspiration? Because there's so much importance put on inspiration. And I have always wondered, like, if you are, okay, the story of my creative life is I'm absolutely exhausted. I am absolutely buggered. My brain is so frazzled and destroyed, and you can't take a break and walk away, because if you do, you'll never get it done. I'm incapable of making any more decisions about this song, but I have a deadline and it's got to get done. And this is the first of 12 or 13 tracks that must get created. Because I have chosen to run my music at this end of it as something that is producing, because the Brill building, wow, that inspired me. The whole concept that there was a building where they just churned out. I love that. I want that. I want to be a one person Brill building. So my question is, and it really comes down to, how do you fool yourself? How do you, if you're not inspired, how do you, and I'm going to answer the question from my perspective at least, how do you fool the audience and yourself In fact, maybe you just need to fool yourself into creating something that is that sounds like it's inspired. How do you, and I know the cruel trick about motivation is you have to start and then you get motivated. And that's a bastard, but that's how it is. And I will always go, well, I'm going to do as much of this by hand as I possibly can by banging pieces of metal and sampling that and being open to happy accidents. But as far as actually being inspired, maybe I don't know what that means. Or maybe I've definitely been inspired. But I don't. It's funny that people talk about that rush, because that's really what you want. It's that rush. I'm inspired. I don't get that rush very much. I get that. I get, instead of this mind obliterating moment, I get a very cheeky cackle when I can read over a lyric and go, there it is, gotcha. That's offensive. It's clever. It's funny. It's not clear, but that lyric hits the mark, and I can listen back to a song and go, yeah, that hits the mark. I don't know what I'm trying to say. How do you hack this? How do you hack inspiration in yourself? Rezi, go.
No, I don't have that answer. That's the answer I also don't have. I will say that I get inspiration 5 times a day from things, and it doesn't connect with motivation for years. And an unfortunate result of that can very easily be just don't release an album for a decade, and now you've waited for inspiration and motivation to come together. There's a non-answer. Another non-answer is, I might have mentioned this already, but Dan Olson from Folding Ideas, who has some really great think pieces and video essays on well, anyway, he said, oh, I could do that, was his response. Like when he's watching stuff and he's like, oh yeah, I could do that. And I get that feeling a lot. Like in music, I hear, I want to do that. I'm gonna do that. Or here's how I do that. Like those feelings come a lot. And I heard, I don't know, maybe it was, whatever. People talk about music like, oh, riffs for days. Like I can write riffs. It always happens. But motivation is still a gap, and there's the inspiration motivation gap is the other buzzword that we're kind of talking about now. And bridging that gap, people think there's some science to it, and they're talking like there's science to it, but we are still talking about such a highly personal, chemistry bound, what happened in the rest of your day and in your childhood bound bullshit thing that it's hard to tease out. And man, I wish there was a universal answer for bridging that. How do you fix it? How do you turn mild inspiration into functional motivation and see it through to the end of a project? And I think we come here once a week and try to do a bit of that too, in addition to not having the answers. At least we're spending some effort seeking those answers. And if there is anything, again, for me, it does come down to that curiosity where I'll see something that exists in the world frequently and have a vibe, a feeling of how to interpret that and how to capture some of the feelings it gives me. And you get 10 of those and maybe 15 of those or 30 of those, and you finally turn it into something, and man, then you got a stew, baby.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Alex, talk to me.
Whenever I'm just by myself and there isn't like a soundscape around me, like I'm just in my apartment, there's no music, and maybe not even something I'm reading, then naturally there will be songs in my head. I can't stop it, it just appears. Usually they're not really good, but sometimes they are, and that's basically how it happens for me. Or if I'm just jogging by myself, just in the rhythm of my breathing and the speed that I'm jogging at, there will be a song in my head or a tune or whatever. Usually they are like very kitschy, very not good, but they're still there. And yeah, that's usually how it works for me. And it's just not having any stimulation, so my brain just comes up with something.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Rob, talk to me.
I think there's lots of industries that struggle with creative magic. And if you think about comedians, they've got to come up with new material all the time. What inspires them to write funny jokes? Is it they see something mundane, which tends to be funny if you communicate it in a certain way. And maybe that's that hook. It's kind of similar to a musical hook or a musical joke where you're connecting two different ideas together and it's becoming funny or engaging or farcical or hitting the spot on what people are thinking but not saying. It's almost like you have a bag full of stones and you throw those stones out onto the blanket, and there are evil words and happy words and random things like a goat and a tire and some oil, and you end up with the lubricated goat. You knew I was going there, didn't you, Karl? But it's kind of, there's some randomness that makes the synapses connect, and all of a sudden there's a giggle moment. And I think that giggle moment, that cosmic joke or that musical joke is a real challenge, and people have to have a method for that. And for people who do this professionally, like lyricists who write music for a living and sell lyrics to bands, they do this. That's their bread and butter. Maybe there's value in sitting with a comedian one day and asking them, how do you come up with your material? What is the process that you do that? Or sitting with a composer of an orchestra, or sitting with a choreographer for a dance routine. How do you come up with this shit? Like, is this an image process that floods your brain after you fall asleep in your alpha mode? Like, what is going on? And I think Razi's kind of hit it on the mark. It's a biochemical process that connects interesting, unrelated ideas and spawns this new little amoeba that makes you laugh. It makes you giggle. It buzzes your brain and go, oh my God, I just had this wacky idea about lubricated goats. Yeah.
So you've got to watch Lubricated Goat play live on Money or the Gun. Okay. Another great Australian band, Lubricated Goat. Now, this is fascinating because I've spoken to classical orchestral composers about how they do it, and there's a trick. I've spoken to choreographers. I've never spoken to a comedian because they've always told me to fuck off. And painters and sculptors, I've spoken to them too. But like fascinating how I turn an idea. Yeah, comedians are really grumpy pricks. And they're very guarded. It's like, I'm not going to steal your fucking joke. So with choreography, and this is fascinating, I have had the pleasure of knowing several choreographers, and something that they talk about is how there's a movement, and they might be out shopping or something, and their wrist does something, or they're following somebody, and the way that they put the baked beans into the thing, the way they moved, the way they did this thing, and then that motion. How do I do that with my whole body? How do I do that with my, where they come up with a 2-bar riff and they turn it into a 3-minute piece. That's what's really interesting, is that, that riff or that movement. Sure. I think my first thing that I'm saying is that to come up with that riff, 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration, that saying, right? Increasingly for me, there's no inspiration. Although in lyrics, the lyrics are often very inspired. And then I guess the music is inspired by the lyrics, but there's never that moment with me. And for me, you can tell when an Angelspit song's inspired because it doesn't make sense. But it works. I don't, that's the core question that I'm asking here is, how do you hack inspiration? How do you hack it? And there's been some great comments like painting an apple in 50 different ways. That's great. I guess that's what I'm talking about is how do you fake it? And yet do it so passionately, with such conviction, that you are inspiring the person that you're singing to, that that if music is about bringing people closer to God, however you want to define God, that person feels closer to God. And I am now absolutely convinced that the human mind is hackable. The music does not have to be inspired for the person to be inspired. Doesn't. Yeah. I don't know if I'm making any sense now. Alex, make sense of my madness.
Yeah, maybe a side note. I think Mozart even decided some aspects of his music later on by dice. Just rolling a dice and then going from there. So even the greats sometimes struggle to come up with something novel, because they've written so many pieces that it's hard to come up with something new.
I believe that the word inspire means to inhale the breath of God. Am I wrong about that?
Depends what he's had to eat.
I know, right? And also, if it's belching, I want to know about that
Fucking
shit.
garlic.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something that I'm always trying to figure out, is and that there's so many maybe mint. I hope God's breath would be minty fresh or something. And there's so many different stages of the creative process. There's writing it, there's lyrics, there's production, there's preliminary mix, there's secondary mix, there's third mix. It's like a Hobbit, and they're breakfasts. There's fourth breakfast. It just keeps going. Then there's the then there's the final fucking mix. So by the time you get to that final mix, I guess in my case, I've got a system going that is so. It's like the public service, that there is actually, Jesus Christ. It hurts my brain to say that comparing the way I work is like the public service, but it is, because nothing can fall through the cracks, and everything has a process that needs to get to the next point, because you can't fake it. You can't. Well, you can fake it. That's what the whole thing's about, but you can't take a shortcut, because if you do, there's going to be a quality control thing involved with it. I'm just talking in circles now. Alex, you know what else is a circle?
Time.
Pizza. Time is a circle.
It's not the box. Why in the box is round?
Right?
Pizza is a flat circle?
I used to say that, Alex, go.
What would happen if you just were in front of another person's setup?
That's fantastic.
Would
Yeah.
you be more creative? Or
Probably,
more...
yeah. Because that area in your brain that goes into problems, like emergency problem solving mode, gets clicked in. And that is a really great thing for, hey, dude, can I have a loan of your synthesizer? I used to say to a friend of mine, my life's a hole and I hate it. It's this horrible hole. It's this empty, bottomless hole. It's a horrible hole. But what I'm going to take is, I'm going to take that hole, I'm going to smear it in mozzarella. And then I'm going to put some bits of pepperoni and chicken on it, and then some mushrooms. And I'm going to cover that motherfucker in the cheese and stick it in the oven for like 10 minutes. 15 minutes at 450 degrees Celsius. I mean, no, that'll melt metal. What is it in Celsius? I don't know anymore. 200? And that's a pizza. It was a pizza croak. See, I just brought everything back to pizza. No one gives a shit. Rob, how?
We were never that far from pizza, to be fair.
So, given that you're the public service in your brain, does that mean that you get tired of trying to think of new ideas, and that you have to separate yourself from reality for a little while to find your groove?
Thank you. I thank my higher power that I am an unquenchable quest to find new ideas. perhaps that is an addiction. Is finding new ideas. I am always thirsting for new sounds and new ideas. I am exhausted and tired and frustrated. But if somebody turned up and said, "Do you want to go on a sonic safari tomorrow?" I would go, "Oh my God, yes."
And you mentioned madness before. It sounds like the madness creates ideas.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny that when you're losing, this is interesting because like standing in front of somebody else's synth or a new synth or something, and your brain goes into emergency fix shit up mode, and also teetering around the edge of insanity. And I don't use that lightly, by the way. I use that as in you feel that you are in danger of doing something and you're not in control. Like that absolute, it's kind of terror. It's a really wonderful time to try and notate what's going on or somehow remember it. Yeah. I may have told you this once, but somebody once told me that, you know, if you're scared of demons in the room or something, write that shit down because that's great horror fodder. Do you ever go to the beach? No. I do not go to the beach. Anukit. Do I look like someone who goes to the beach?
That's a West Coast response. You're adopted, man. Because on the East Coast, you say, yeah,
I'm adopted,
night.
man. Did you hear the way the resonator just said, "You're adopted, man"?
Man. No, but seriously, you think Pacific Coast, you're like sun and muscles and oily, whatever, bikinis. But over here, we're like, yeah, at night when it's cold and the sea is threatening and mean.
Dark and menacing.
Angry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I will put on my my best bikini and lube up, and my massive amounts of muscles will abound. But I don't know. You know what? I don't really go to the beach much at night, and I don't think I've ever been to like an East Coast beach.
So when you start painting, do you ever paint without an idea in mind, and then all of a sudden you decide what you're going to paint halfway through?
No.
Who
I
does
wish I
that?
did. I wish I could, but I
No, but
can't.
who does that?
I don't know. Like, do people do that?
I mean, if you were frustrated and tired, you might start doing it, but you know what's going to happen. You're going to throw that piece of shit in the bin and get angry.
Yeah.
TV and
Yeah.
desktop.
But what's interesting is that if I sit down at our synthesizer or art piano with absolutely a blank mind, and if I allow myself to lose myself in the sounds of that machine, I might possibly come up with something. But whereas if I'm painting, you know, but then the other side of it is if I'm scratching something on a piece of paper, maybe that will become something. But when it comes time to paint, I usually know what the fuck I'm doing. I guess.
Maybe you've got to create a thinking process where you're on the synth and you select strings and you do a D minor. And then you go, okay, now I'm going to move seats and I'm going to paint strings in D minor. And then paint the scene and then go back to the keyboard and compose what the picture was telling you. Very ethereal.
That's lovely. I love that. Thank you very much. That's lovely. Yeah. Thank you. Alex.
What I did in high school was just doodle stuff in the rim of my notes, and I think that's the closest thing I ever did to just coming up with something without even having a goal and just having the pen be the guide on what's being written. And usually it was like weird monsters and abstract shapes, but yeah, I think for me that was the closest thing to just putting the pen down and letting something appear.
Unless you actually make a ceremony from it. I can't stop thinking. I really want to go to the beach at night now. Thank you very much for that suggestion. Like, if you go and we've lost Ivan. Set up candles, wear a robe, listening to something backwards, and get on in there, and do yourself an Abramelin. Razi.
Alex, you reminded me of course, my own notebook margins at that time of life for some reason, but also that's when all my 4-track cassette audio bits were the same thing. They were just doodles in the margins. There were, like, maybe I was trying to write a song or something, but they didn't have a path to becoming a complete song. They were phrases and segments and experiments and things not attached to greater meaning in some way, with a freedom and expressiveness that didn't say, I need to go someplace. I don't know. It's an interesting, I'm putting more words on it than are necessary. I think we all understand the concept of doodling in the margins very well. But having also an audio version of that, I'm realizing I don't record those kinds of things much anymore. But honestly, I think that's what TikTok and Instagram Reels are for in a lot of ways. I've seen some people do that pretty successfully.
Thank you. Firstly, the intro to Seven, the intro sequence to Seven still blows my mind. I only say this because I watched it the other day on VHS. Also, the John Doe in the book The Killer, Kevin Spacey's characters, his books, like, that's so inspiring, so inspiring. Just to have a book where you just screech into and say, what is this saying musically? You yell with ink there, and your ears translate that or something. Brett, talk to me.
So, and kind of tying a couple of things that we said here today, we kind of started off with just curse words, right? And going with the inspiration, maybe the whole point of this is fuck it, just do something. And I'll give you kind of a lesson I learned, playing with, like my own X-Files, if you will. Early on, I got bored with all my riffs, and I'm sitting there with like my DX100, and like it was a Casio CZ series, I want to say 101, and then I had another Casio, and it was just a big MIDI robot chain, right? And I was running Cakewalk at that time, and I had all these little pieces of songs and whatnot that I started, but I didn't like any of them, and then out of boredom one day, I just sat there and I grabbed like 4 of them, cut them in half, and strung them together, and ended up in doing so creating one of the coolest songs that I'd had at the time. And I ended up actually, because of the word salad nature of both the lyrics that were cut up and just spliced without any concept or anything like that, ended up taking a bunch of them and ended up just naming the entire thing after my psychological profile. And nothing had anything to do with anything other than the one unifying concept was that I made all of it. And that was it was just another example of fuck it, just do something.
That is really excellent. And remember, increasingly in our great modern age, you have, with your time, you can either get your hands dirty and make noises or paint or do something crazy, or you can death scroll. And one of them you will regret doing. And it ain't the art. You will regret death scrolling. You will lie on your bed when you are dying going, fuck, I regret every moment I death scrolled. Alex, what are your thoughts?
To bounce off what Raziel said, first of what other people do, if they are into Eurorack and have the goal of a finished track, usually people just let it record, and then later pick out the bits that they really liked, and then use them as sample in their fully fledged productions. And for me, what I did is just either if I have like a VST or an iPad app, and I have like something that I like, I just quickly record it and then use it as a sample for something else. So maybe that's a good analogy to the tape recording. And one time I even did it with actual tape, but not multi-track because I don't have one of those.
Thank you. This has been awesome. I'm voting we leave it here. And I want to thank everybody. We're going to be here next week. Is it 6? What time is it in Berlin, Alex?
It's almost 8 o'clock.
Okay, cool.
So the start time would be 6 o'clock.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Or pizza o'clock. Join us next weekend. Every Saturday we are here doing this madness. These are great chats, and I'm really, really grateful. They're nice. Angelspit's Patreon is where it's at. If you got some money, throw it my way. If you don't, it's free. You can just get up there and enjoy this shit for free, mostly. Or if it's not free now, it will be eventually. I've got a gig. Oh my God, December 11th. There it is. It's going to be amazing. Go. Ice Planet 9000 gig. There. Go. Industrial Incisions playlist. These people plus other people making music. It's fucking awesome. Listen to it on Spotify. On Wednesday night, I want you to go to Vulture Culture and I want you to watch the mad shit that Alex talks about because it's bloody awesome. We did a dark ambient masterclass. I spelled that right, I think. With Ice Planet 9000 and Vulture Culture. That's the video. It's actually quite good. Well done, Alex, for making me not look like an idiot. You are fucking amazing. Right now, Razi, thank you so much for co-hosting. You're a bloody fucking rock star. We are going to raid to MTV now. And I thank y'alls for being here. If you've got music you want to be on MTV TV, just email them and they'll play your video because they're awesome. We are going to raid and we're going to go to Magic Raiding La La Land. Magic Raiding La La Land. Do you like my song?
Yeah, it's a good tune. It's one of the hits.
It's a bloody good. I am the hit maker.
Inspired.
Can't wait to dance.
It's inspired. Are we gonna get naked with goats and cover ourselves with oil?
On the
Get
beach.
goats.
Yeah.
Roll on the beach in oil with the naked goat.
Ooh, sand
and bum
awful. Ooh. Okay, so everybody who's still there, I think we just rated. And if you're watching this on anything else, we're going over to MTV TV now, and you rock. And Armor and Quills, welcome. As I try and figure out how to end this goddamn stream, I never know how to end the stream. No way I can do this. I believe in myself.